Hello and welcome back to Let's Talk Real Estate. My name is Kristen Jock with Compass, and on this week's episode I'm discussing resale versus new development. What are the trade-offs? So to start off with resale, you do have lower property taxes typically with resale versus new development, and this is especially the case since programs that offer tax abatements have required much more significant restrictions to them in New York City in recent years. In addition to lower property taxes, you also have the ability to negotiate price more in resale. There is an exception to this. However, if you get involved early on in a new development project, the developer is more incentivized to negotiate things like price and terms in order to reach certain thresholds in the project, which allow for them to declare the project a condo, as well as ability to finance the condo. You also have lower closing costs in a resale versus a new development. So whereas you would have your typical closing costs as a buyer, in new development, you're also required to pay items that in a resale are typically paid by the seller. And these items are transfer taxes and seller's attorney's costs. And this can equate to a couple percentage points of closing costs higher in a new development than in a resale. You also have a faster process and a quicker close in a resale project. Typically the contract would be anywhere from 60 to 90 days. Whereas in a new development, you could be waiting 6 months to several years to close on the project. So moving on over to new development. With new development, it's a new construction, a new building, a new unit, never previously lived in by another buyer. And this can obviously be an attractive feature to many buyers. You also typically have lower energy costs in a new construction. So the building is typically more adaptable to things like climate change, being more efficient when it comes to energy and maintenance costs, in comparison with that of an older resale building. And inherent in its newness, a new construction typically has less maintenance, as I said, and a lower overall cost of upkeep, especially in the initial years of ownership, in comparison with that of a resale building, which might need significant work either over time or upfront in order to make it livable. And the last item that I want to touch on has to do with an inherent risk to buyers of new development. And that being that if you're one of the initial buyers in the project, certainly before they sell a majority of the units in the building, developers typically do not offer financing contingencies to buyers, and that does represent an inherent risk to them. So in consideration of the fact that the timeline is also much longer, many things can happen. You could lose your job, you could develop an illness, not be able to work, and that could affect your ability to get a loan and be able to finance the project. And in that case, you may forfeit either a portion, if not all, of your deposit. So certainly these are things to keep in mind when you're considering whether to buy a resale versus a new development. And I think when you're looking at resale, you're looking at the cost being spread out over a longer period of time when it comes to maintaining and upkeeping the property versus a lot more upfront cost in new construction, with things like higher closing costs, higher taxes, etc. Certainly something you want to keep in mind when considering how long you might hold on to the property in order to determine which style might be better for you as a buyer. So I hope that this information was useful. As always, please leave your comments and questions below. Have a wonderful week and see you soon.